Have you ever wondered why some people lose respect in the eyes of others despite their good intentions? Why certain behaviors, though seemingly small, can erode trust and diminish one's reputation? Today, we're going to explore 4 habits that, if left unchecked, may cause people to distance themselves from you, or worse, view you with quiet disrespect. These are not your average bad habits. They are deep-rooted tendencies that strike at the core of human connection and mutual respect. By examining these habits and drawing on the principles of Stoicism, we'll gain insight into how to cultivate a character that draws people in rather than pushes them away. This exploration isn't just about refraining from certain behaviors. It's about understanding ourselves and choosing to lead lives guided by integrity, self-control, and empathy. Let's start this journey with a key aspect of character that few of us fully appreciate until it's missing: reliability. And remember, it is the final habit that reveals the ultimate lesson in personal respect and connection. So stay with me to the end. Are you ready? 1. Being unreliable. Reliability is a foundation of character. It is the bridge between intention and trust. Imagine a world in which people make promises only to break them without consequence. How would relationships thrive? How could friendships endure if commitments meant nothing? When we fail to be reliable, we compromise not only the trust others have in us, but also the way we see ourselves. But what exactly is reliability? In Stoicism, it goes beyond simply showing up. It is about showing up consistently, with integrity and respect for others' time and energy. Reflect for a moment. How many times have you made a promise, perhaps as simple as agreeing to meet someone at a specific time, only to cancel at the last moment? How did this affect the other person's perception of you? The cost of unreliability is more significant than most realize. Think back to a time when someone made you feel let down. Perhaps a friend didn't show up for an important event, or a colleague missed a deadline, leaving you to bear the brunt of their irresponsibility. How did that make you feel? Now consider how often you might have unknowingly put someone else in that same position. Stoicism teaches that our character is a reflection of our actions, not our intentions. Therefore, every broken promise weakens the trust others place in us, and that trust, once lost, is incredibly difficult to regain. The speaker in our video shared a personal story of being the flaky friend, the one who could never be counted on to follow through on commitments. For a long time, this habit seemed harmless. Life is busy after all, and things come up. But over time, people began to notice, especially those closest to him. One incident stood out. A close friend, Sarah, had gone to great lengths to organize a birthday party. He had promised to attend, but on the day of the event, he got sidetracked with something else and didn't bother to let her know until hours after the party had started. When he finally called, he could hear the disappointment in her voice. It was a subtle but undeniable shift in their relationship. She stopped inviting him to gatherings, and they gradually drifted apart. In that moment, he realized that each missed commitment, each broken promise, wasn't just a harmless oversight. It was a crack in the foundation of trust that held their friendship together. So, how do we remedy this habit of unreliability? Stoicism offers a clear path: self-awareness and restraint. Recognize your limitations and be honest with yourself about what you can commit to. In our pursuit to be helpful or agreeable, it's easy to make promises impulsively, thinking that we'll manage to keep them. But in reality, every commitment demands time and energy. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." Instead of offering excuses, let your actions reflect your values. Ask yourself before committing, am I certain I can follow through? Is this promise consistent with my values and capacities? Imagine this scenario. You're asked to help a friend with a project. You know it will be difficult to balance with your other obligations, but you agree, not wanting to disappoint them. As the deadline approaches, you find yourself overwhelmed, and ultimately, you let them down. Reflect on the outcome. Couldn't it have been avoided with honesty upfront? In Stoicism, it is not only permissible, but encouraged to acknowledge our own limits. It is a part of recognizing and accepting our nature. Consider making small but steady efforts to build reliability in your life. Start by committing only to what aligns with your priorities and values. Communicate openly when things don't go as planned. In fact, proactively updating those affected, if a delay or change is inevitable, shows respect for their time and a level of self-accountability that others will recognize. Reliability is also about consistency. It's one thing to be punctual or dependable once. It's another to embody it as a habit. Each time we honor a commitment, no matter how small, we fortify the trust others have in us. Reflect on your own life. What might you gain by practicing greater consistency? Imagine the relationships you could strengthen, the respect you could build, and the sense of integrity you could cultivate. Ultimately, reliability is about more than just keeping promises. It's about living a life that others can respect and depend on. When people know they can trust you, you become a source of stability and respect in their lives. Are you willing to take the steps necessary to become that person? 2. Complaining. Complaining is a habit that, while common, can gradually erode the respect people have for us. At its core, complaining reflects a state of dissatisfaction with life as it is, and a fixation on what we wish could be different. But how often do we pause to ask ourselves, does my complaining bring any meaningful change? Does it contribute positively to my relationships or my own well-being? The Stoics believed that excessive focus on what we cannot control only leads to suffering, both for ourselves and for those around us. When we complain, we not only dwell on the negative, but also project it outward. Think about someone you know who frequently complains. How do you feel in their presence? It's likely that their complaints drain your energy, leaving you feeling more focused on problems than on solutions. Now, consider the reverse. Have there been times when your own complaining may have affected others, turning an otherwise light-hearted moment into one of frustration or negativity? Complaining shifts focus from what is within our control to what is not, keeping us entrenched in discontent. In Stoicism, learning to accept rather than resist what we cannot change is essential to cultivating inner peace and respect from others. The speaker in our video shared a story about how chronic complaining damaged his relationships at work. He was in a job where the workload was heavy, the management disorganized, and his efforts often unrecognized. Instead of taking proactive steps to address his frustrations or looking inward to find ways to cope, he voiced his complaints to anyone who would listen. At first, his co-workers sympathized, offering their own grievances as a form of solidarity. But over time, something changed. His co-workers, friends, and even family grew weary of the constant negativity. They began avoiding him, and conversations became brief. Eventually, even invitations to after-work gatherings dwindled. What was the lesson here? Complaining may feel like a way to connect, to bond over shared struggles, but it can quickly become a toxic habit that drives people away. In Stoicism, the act of complaining is seen as a sign of resistance to the natural flow of events, a refusal to accept what life brings. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, reminds us, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Rather than focusing on obstacles, the Stoics encourage us to view them as opportunities to practice resilience. How then can we move away from the habit of complaining and foster a mindset that others find uplifting and respectable? The first step is awareness. When you feel the urge to complain, ask yourself, is this something I can control? Is there a productive action I could take instead? Another way to combat the urge to complain is through gratitude. When we focus on the positives, however small, we redirect our minds toward what is going well. Think about your daily life. What aspects do you feel grateful for, even on difficult days? Practicing gratitude doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means choosing to acknowledge the good in life rather than fixating on the negative. This approach, deeply rooted in Stoicism, brings us closer to inner peace and fosters a mindset that others find admirable. The Stoics often spoke about the importance of focusing on one's own responses to external situations rather than the situations themselves. In fact, Epictetus teaches us that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. If you find yourself in a situation that is difficult, uncomfortable, or frustrating, how might you reframe your reaction to bring about a constructive change rather than an outpouring of complaints? For example, if you're facing a personal conflict, consider addressing it openly rather than expressing your frustrations to others behind closed doors. Consider this perspective. What kind of atmosphere do you want to create around yourself? When we choose not to complain, we become people who elevate conversations rather than drain them. We draw others in rather than pushing them away. Think of someone who embodies this approach, someone who remains calm in the face of adversity, who seeks solutions instead of venting frustrations. Doesn't such a person naturally command respect? Moving forward, commit to an internal practice that will serve you when complaints begin to surface. Each time you catch yourself on the brink of a complaint, pause, reflect on whether you could change the situation or whether acceptance is the wiser path. When complaining no longer consumes your energy, you become free to focus on growth and progress, to foster a peaceful, grounded state of mind that others gravitate toward. Remember, while voicing dissatisfaction may feel satisfying in the short term, it rarely leads to meaningful change. Instead, let us practice gratitude, acceptance, and proactive problem-solving. Through these actions, we reflect a Stoic mindset that prioritizes inner peace over external turbulence and attracts the respect we seek in our relationships. 3. Gossiping. Gossiping is a habit that might seem harmless at first, an exchange of information, perhaps even a way to bond over shared stories. Yet, gossip is more corrosive than it appears. It diminishes trust, breeds suspicion, and ultimately reflects poorly on the person spreading it. In Stoicism, gossiping is seen as a distraction from one's own character, a failure to focus on self-improvement. Instead of cultivating virtues within, gossip leads us outward, meddling in the lives of others, rather than refining our own. So let's ask ourselves, what does gossip really achieve? How does it affect our relationships and the way others perceive us? To understand this, think about a time when you shared or heard gossip about someone else. In that moment, it may have felt thrilling or like a way to connect with those around you. Yet, what happens afterward? When people hear us talk about others behind their backs, they naturally wonder, what do you say about me when I'm not around? This is where the erosion of trust begins. Stoic philosophy teaches that our character is our true reputation, and gossip undermines this reputation by showing others that we lack discretion and integrity. The speaker in our video shared a story that highlights this very point. During his college years, he and his friends engaged in gossip regularly, treating it as a pastime. At one point, he learned that a friend, let's call her Emily, had developed a crush on someone perceived to be out of her league. Instead of keeping this information private, he shared it with his friends, and soon it became a source of amusement for their entire social circle. When Emily discovered that her feelings had become a joke, she was devastated and distanced herself from the group. The speaker admits that even at the time, he felt a pang of guilt. He knew he had crossed a line, and the consequence was clear. He lost a friend's trust and respect. In Stoicism, gossiping is not only seen as a waste of time, but as an act that actively undermines one's virtue. Epictetus advises, keep silence for the most part, and speak only when you must, and then briefly. This teaching reminds us that our words should be purposeful and constructive, not trivial or destructive. When we gossip, we disregard the Stoic principle of focusing on our own behavior. Instead, we distract ourselves by casting judgment on others. This brings neither joy nor wisdom. It merely sows seeds of distrust. But how do we resist the temptation to gossip, especially when it's so embedded in social interactions? One way is by cultivating an awareness of our intentions. When you feel the urge to share something about another person, pause and ask yourself, why am I sharing this? Will this contribute to the well-being of anyone involved, or am I merely indulging in a fleeting sense of satisfaction? The more we reflect, the more we realize that gossip rarely has a constructive purpose. In Stoicism, we are encouraged to redirect our attention from external events and focus on what we can control, our own thoughts and actions. Let's consider another perspective. Imagine being on the receiving end of gossip. How would it feel to know that others are speaking about your personal matters without your consent? How would this affect your trust in those around you? The Stoics believed that by respecting others' privacy, we honor our own integrity. Gossip doesn't just harm the person being spoken about. It diminishes the person sharing it by revealing a lack of self-restraint and respect. The speaker also shared a story from his professional life that further illustrates the impact of gossip. In his first job, he discovered that a colleague, John, was dealing with a serious health issue. Instead of respecting John's privacy, he shared this information with others, thinking it would make for an interesting conversation. When John found out, he was hurt and disappointed. Their working relationship was never the same, and it became evident to the speaker that his actions had not only disrespected John, but had also tarnished his own reputation. To break free from the habit of gossiping, the Stoics would suggest practicing discretion and self-control. Consider this: if someone confides in you, they are placing their trust in your ability to keep their matters private. Honoring that trust is a reflection of your own integrity and respect for others. The Stoics encourage us to engage in conversations that are uplifting and constructive, rather than ones that tear others down. Instead of sharing gossip, think about the kind of dialogue that would foster connection and respect. Can we engage in topics that inspire growth rather than breed division? Can we build others up instead of dissecting their lives? As Seneca reminds us, associate with those who make a better man of you. By choosing conversations that are meaningful and avoiding idle talk, we create an environment that others want to be part of. We earn respect not only by what we say, but by what we choose not to say. Each time we resist the urge to gossip, we strengthen our character, cultivate inner peace, and foster a sense of mutual respect with those around us. So, the next time you're drawn to a piece of gossip, pause. Reflect on what you gain by sharing it versus what you lose. Practicing restraint in these moments is not easy, but each act of self-control brings us closer to a Stoic ideal of integrity. Over time, you'll find that people begin to see you as someone they can trust and respect, knowing that you focus on what truly matters, building others up rather than tearing them down. Let us now move forward to the final habit, one that is subtle yet deeply impactful in the way it shapes our relationships: interrupting others. 4. Interrupting others. Interrupting others is a habit that many of us may not recognize in ourselves. Often, we interrupt not out of malice but from enthusiasm or a desire to contribute. Yet, this habit sends a subtle but powerful message: my words are more important than yours. Interrupting not only disrupts the flow of conversation, but also tells others that we're not fully present or willing to listen. In Stoicism, the act of listening is held in high regard, as it demonstrates patience, respect, and humility, traits essential for meaningful relationships. Reflect for a moment on how it feels to be interrupted. When someone cuts you off mid-sentence, you may feel dismissed or unvalued. Now, Think of times when you may have done the same to others. Was it because you felt your point was more pressing? Did you assume you knew what they were going to say? Stoic philosophy teaches us to listen attentively and respect the thoughts and expressions of others. The Stoic sage is slow to speak and quick to listen, recognizing that by allowing others to finish, we show them respect and cultivate our own self-discipline. The speaker shared a story from his professional life to illustrate the impact of this habit. Early in his career, he was part of a team that held regular brainstorming sessions. Eager to prove himself, he would often interrupt others, believing that his input would move the discussion forward. But one day, his manager stopped the meeting to address him directly. "You need to let people finish their thoughts. You're not listening, you're just waiting for your turn to speak." This was a wake-up call. He realized that his eagerness to contribute was coming across as self-centeredness, and his co-workers felt undervalued as a result. Interrupting is more than just a conversational misstep. It reveals a lack of control over one's impulses. In Stoicism, restraint is vital to developing a harmonious life. Seneca encourages us to be silent as to what most men talk about and converse about what most men keep silent. This Stoic wisdom reminds us to be deliberate with our words and mindful of our timing. Instead of rushing to express our thoughts, we are encouraged to listen fully, allowing others to express themselves completely before responding. To address this habit, we must first cultivate awareness. In your next conversation, pay attention to your natural urge to interject. Instead of giving in, try pausing. Ask yourself, am I truly listening, or am I merely waiting to speak? This small act of patience can transform interactions, creating a space where others feel respected and valued. Practicing active listening, where you focus entirely on the speaker without formulating your response in advance, builds deeper connections and fosters respect. Another story the speaker shared involved a personal conversation with a friend. During a night out, his friend was opening up about his struggles with anxiety. Eager to relate, the speaker jumped in, sharing his own experience before his friend could finish. This well-intentioned interruption ended up shifting the focus away from his friend's struggles and made it seem as if he wasn't truly listening. His friend's disappointed reaction was a powerful reminder that listening is not about responding or offering solutions, but about being present. When we interrupt, we cut off the possibility for deeper understanding and empathy. The Stoics understood this well, recognizing that listening is not just a courtesy, it is a virtue that strengthens our relationships and builds trust. By listening fully, we honor the humanity of others and practice humility, recognizing that every person's thoughts have value. Imagine the respect you could cultivate by making a habit of listening deeply. How might it transform your relationships with friends, family, or colleagues? Consider the peace and harmony that might emerge if we each committed to mindful listening, to allowing others the time and space to share their thoughts without fear of interruption. When we refrain from interrupting, we not only strengthen our self-discipline, but also signal to others that we respect their voices. As we conclude this habit, remember, every conversation is an opportunity to practice patience and presence. Let's aim to listen more and speak only when it truly contributes to the conversation. Each of these habits, being unreliable, complaining, gossiping, and interrupting, has the potential to chip away at the respect others have for us. They are behaviors that reflect a lack of self-discipline, empathy, and focus on what truly matters. The Stoic path teaches us that respect and dignity come not from outward accomplishments, but from the integrity of our actions. By observing and refining our daily habits, we can build lives rooted in virtues that naturally command respect. As you reflect on these habits, ask yourself, what kind of character am I cultivating through my actions? Am I living in a way that aligns with my highest values? The Stoics remind us that we each have the power to choose our responses, to exercise self-control, and to focus on what is within our control. By choosing to act with integrity, patience, and respect, we not only improve our own lives, but also elevate those around us. If this journey through Stoic insights has resonated with you, I encourage you to take small steps toward embodying these principles. Start by choosing one habit to work on and observe how it impacts your relationships. Over time, you'll find that the effort to live with integrity and self-control brings a profound sense of inner peace, a peace that others will recognize and respect. Let us strive to live with virtue, to speak with purpose, and to listen with presence. May our actions reflect a character that is steady, dignified, and grounded in the timeless wisdom of Stoicism. If you found value in this video, please like, share, and consider subscribing to join us in exploring more on Stoicism and personal growth. Feel free to comment below with your thoughts. Have you encountered these habits in yourself or others? Let's continue the conversation, learn from each other, and grow together. Thank you for watching. Stay strong, stay mindful, and above all, stay stoic.